We're going to get a chance to visit about what's going on out there in the workforce. Some of this came about because there was some questions coming into the show about job availability. Well, we don't know anybody that we get to talk to about this with that's better than Phil Davis. Phil is the Workforce Services Director at North Dakota Job Service. Phil, good to have you on News and Views.
Hey, good morning, Joel. I appreciate having me on. And I'm like you. I wish we were out pheasant hunting instead of doing this, but I do truly enjoy doing this also.
Well, thank you. Here's the thing, Phil. I don't think we feel good. Let's go. Let's go.
Sounds good.
Let's play sick today. Phil, in North Dakota right now, could you find a job and find one very quick?
Yes, you can find quite a number of jobs in North Dakota right now. There is very little competition, I would say. However, in saying that, and I'm going to get to some of these numbers, one thing I do want to point out that we've been hearing over probably the last 4 months is we've been hearing a little bit of back talk about employers ghosting prospective job seekers. And what I mean by that is somebody might apply for a position and they never hear back. Or it might be 3 or 4 weeks later and they hear back. So I'm kind of keeping my eye on that a little bit. I've heard from 3 or 4 of our workforce center managers from around the state. We have 9 offices across the state, and they've been hearing kind of the same thing from people coming in and looking. And we've seen our numbers increase as far as the amount of people that have been utilizing our workforce centers. 2 years ago, we had right at 22,000 people come into our offices. Now, over the last 18 months to 24 months, we're up before COVID hit us. So we're ending the year right about 36,000 people came into our offices looking for some type of service this past year. So the job market is there. I think there are some job seekers out there looking to fill those needs. But I think we need to have some of the employers do a little bit better job there too.
I always wonder, Phil, and I know, as you said, you're going to get into the numbers, what our unemployment rate is and some of the other figures that go with this. But I always wonder if looking for employees, and I asked a friend of mine that runs a business, and they look for employees. Actually, they're looking for diesel mechs is what they're looking for. And
Sure.
At some point, if they don't just say, look, this is how many we're going to have in our shop, period. We can only do this much work. And they don't expand to where they know they could, where the facility might allow them to expand to. And that, to me, is the worst part of what can happen in an economy, where a business easily could grow, and they don't, just because they can't find employees.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And we've heard that story, even before COVID hit North Dakota, or hit our country, hit worldwide. But right now we're sitting at almost 14,000 positions available on our website. And we've been pretty consistent throughout this past year, anywhere from 13 to 16,000 openings. Just really, it depends on the year. We always see an uptick in that April, May, June timeframe when the construction companies start hiring again. So our numbers generally increase at that point, and then for the most part stay steady throughout September and October, and then we start to take a dip. I kind of went back to 2018, and we were at 13,000 open jobs then, compared to right at 13, like I said, almost 14,000. So we're back to where we were before COVID hit North Dakota, and I think that's been a great thing. Now, let's turn the tables a little bit and talk about unemployment rate. This is one in September. We set an all-time record for North Dakota at 1.3%. Since back, I think it was in the early 70s when we started, the U.S. Department of Labor started tracking this. That's the lowest North Dakota has ever been. And currently we're sitting at 1.4%. And that was for the month of, the record was for September, 1.3. And then October, we saw just a tenth of a percent up to 1.4. And our new unemployment rate will be out next Friday. And I'm thinking that'll be like 1.5, 1.6%, just because we're seeing some of our construction employees start being laid off, even though we have some good weather. But some of that, the road work's starting to come to an end, that sort of thing. So it was very interesting this last fall looking at those numbers.
So, talking about those numbers, I think that people, when they look at any percentage of unemployment and where a 1.3, 1.4 just is like, wow, there's always going to be unemployed people. I mean, explain to people how the system works and why there's always going to be a percentage and why this number being that low would be such a shock.
Sure. So if you have let's say a 1.3% unemployment rate, that equals, and we have a labor force of about 418,000 people. So that gives you about 5,600 people that are unemployed. Now, that doesn't mean, and this is kind of a fallacy out there, well, what are all those people doing? They're just sitting around collecting unemployment. That is so wrong. At that time in September, we only had about 600 people on unemployment collecting benefits every week. And roughly about 40% of those were going back to their employer. So their employer just laid them off for a week or two. Maybe it was to reconfigure the warehouse. Maybe it was just to reconfigure the computer systems, whatever it was, just a short amount of time. And then they're back working again. Now, like I said, we have since climbed in November and December with our construction industry starting to lay off. And we do have 2,100 people on unemployment, but 70% of them are what we call job attached. And so that gives us, again, only 630 people that are on unemployment, being paid some type of benefit. So again, very few people out there truly looking for work. And I want to also point out, if a person is unemployed, collecting an unemployment benefit, and they are not returning to their employer, they have to have a resume on our website, jobsindeed.com, and they have to have an appointment with us to look for a new job. So it is quite intensive when you, here in North Dakota, when you are on unemployment benefits and not returning to your employer, you got some work to do. And we want people off the bench. Like my boss always says, we want everybody off the bench and in the game. Well, most everybody in North Dakota is off the bench and in the game. And I think as a state, we're very proud of our work ethic.
And I'm sorry if you hit this earlier, Phil, and Phil Davis is our guest. He's a workforce service director at North Dakota Job Service. But how do we stack up against other states? When you're sitting there at a 1.3, 1.4, I mean, are you calling these other states and going, ha-ha, or how do you deal with this?
Yeah. No, I don't think we called. Now, we have a really good working relationship just with our peers in South Dakota, but they're in the same boat. You know, generally, we are either leading the country in unemployment or we're number 2 or number 3 behind states like South Dakota, Nebraska, Maryland. And we're always changing, 1, 2, 3, or 4. But another thing I want to point out is workforce participation rate. That number is very key. So that's if you're able to work 16 and over. We have the highest workforce participation rate, almost 70% in the nation. So you add those two things together, plus a huge amount of openings for North Dakota, that is, job openings. And, I always say, 13 to 14,000 is kind of typical. We jumped 15, 16,000 in the spring. And I know there's more job openings than that. That's just what we have in our system. And, like you mentioned, your buddy there, that your friend that could hire some diesel techs. Well, what if he has a job opening with us that has, okay, I'm looking for one diesel tech. But darn right, if he has 2 qualified diesel techs that walk into his business tomorrow, he'd probably figure out a way to hire them and quickly. So that's what I sometimes, it's just what an employer puts into our system is what we continually report. So it is, we've heard the governor say, well, it's probably twice what Job Service is reporting. I wouldn't argue with that. Of course, he's my boss's boss, so I can't argue with the governor, but he's spot on when he does say that.
Yeah, I think governor is. It's just a realization there's a lot of jobs out there. Hang with me, Phil. Abby told me that we talked you into doing more. So Phil Davis is the Workforce Services Director at North Dakota Job Service. We're talking about unemployment rate in North Dakota. Obviously, the numbers are good there. Phil, I got a call from an individual, and it's perception sometimes versus reality. But his point was that there aren't a lot of jobs out there waiting for someone like him. And we talked about, okay, what do you do? And he said, well, I'm a welder. And you could just hear the groan from the number of businesses out there. Now, I'm not trying to pick on this guy, Phil. That's not my point at all. My point is there a disconnect between somebody looking for a job and what's available out there in that field for him in that job?
Yeah, that sounds like there's definitely a disconnect, and definitely not picking on this individual. I would love for him to come into wherever he's located, to come into one of our offices, be greeted at the door, let him tell his story, and see what we can do to help him as far as getting him. Cause I know there's welding jobs. I don't have that in front of me, the number, but just look at Fargo, for instance, how many manufacturing facilities we have in Fargo. I know there's, and I'm just using Fargo for an example, of course, I know there are welding jobs out there. So what I'd really like him to do, him or her, I can't remember what you said there, but come into one of our offices, go to our website, whatever it may be. We can, pretty much set him up a one-on-one service. And does he have a good resume? Does he know how to job search? And if we get to know that person pretty well, we can even make a call to an employer on his or her behalf. That's what we do here. We have all kinds of employment and training programs. Most people don't know, even though we're a state agency, we are pretty much about 98% federally funded. So please take advantage of those employment and training programs. And all you have to do is walk into one of our 9 workforce centers, and you'll get the help. If not, please send him my way, and I'll ensure that he gets that kind of help he needs.
So one of the things, and we're confusing agencies here, but I want to preface this by saying that, but somebody's asking whether or not we're short workers in North Dakota because we don't protect workers in North Dakota. And they want to know if Phil feels good about the WSI protection that workers need. Thinks that's outside your wheelhouse, but I'm going to throw it at you anyway.
Yeah, that is a little bit outside my wheelhouse. I do know that in my eyes, I've never had a claim with WSI, but I know their leadership there. And I think Art's doing a great job with WSI, and my old boss, Brian Klippfeld, did a great job there. And I think it is a stand-up agency, and I think they just need to give that agency a chance and move forward from there.
I think that's a good answer. That's I worked with WSI in years before Brian Klippfeld, and right. You're always going to find that case where somebody thinks that they weren't treated right or this or that. It's the nature of the agency. But Brian Klippfeld turned that agency into something that was way different than it was before he got the keys. Yeah,
he certainly did, and a lot of people don't know he worked for us back in 2007. Him and I started with Job Service. He retired from the State Patrol, and I retired from the Air Force, and we met here together, and we went different directions, of course. But they've done a great job over there with that agency. But like you just said, there's a case. I mean, for everything. I mean, we have people that are upset with their unemployment claims. Every month we hear of a story, and it is a individual case by case basis that we have to deal with them on.
Phil, do you think Brian's tenure there? Part of the reason that he was successful was because he played football at UND?
Well, holy smokes. I'm not.
I got you to laugh. That was the goal.
I'm not a UND or NDSU grad. I lived in Grand Forks for quite some time. I do cheer for the Fighting Hawks, and I do cheer for the Bison. My daughter graduated from there, so I'm on the fence. But when I'm around Brian, I'm definitely a Fighting Sioux fan, okay?
Yeah. I will tell you this. You're ready to be a governor someday. That was a perfect answer. Where is this going to go? In the minute or so I have left here, Phil, where does this economy go from here? What projections do you have?
Well, I think our economy is going to continue. We've done such a great job as a state in diversifying our company. How about our economy? Anywhere from the Northwest with oil and gas to manufacturing to, you hate to say it, but to government, to education, and just parts in between. And that's what I think we can really hang our hat on. When we see the nation's economy kind of faltering or standing still, we're going strong. And, we can't forget about our great ag economy. I mean, that keeps us rolling every day.
Yeah.
But,
Phil,
I
go ahead.
have to think outside the box a little bit And we're doing that. I just want to plug, we have a virtual job fair going to be happening January 18th from 11 to 3, and we are promoting that outside of the state of North Dakota to get more people here to work and fill those open jobs, as well as take care of our state residents here. But again, if somebody's struggling out there, give us a call. We have programs to take advantage of, jobsnd.com, or even give us a call right here in Bismarck, 328-5000, and we can definitely help you out.
Phil, in the 5 seconds we got left, when you get closer to that jobs fair, you call me. We'll help you get word out, okay?
All right, sir. Merry Christmas, Joel. I appreciate you and everything you're doing out there.
You bet. Merry Christmas to you and that great agency.